to our series, Your Health Today. I'm your host, Bev Muendel-Atherstone. And I'm the chair of Friends of Medicare, your local chapter, which is a nonprofit organization that works to ensure that our public health care system is there for all of us. Over the past few decades, American-style healthcare corporations have had their eyes set on Canada's healthcare system. These are private healthcare companies, and their henchmen, Big Health Insurance, see the potential for a lucrative private healthcare market in Canada. The purpose of this series is to increase awareness of the range of issues confronted by our public healthcare system employees and the types of obstacles placed before those who work within it. I will present a wide range of topics through the eyes and experiences of your friends and neighbors through this series. And I thank Rogers TV for being able to present this program to you. So today, our guest is Chris Rowley. Chris is well known for his advocacy and activist work for people with disabilities. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for being on this Friends of Medicare program. Now, Chris, you've been an advocate for people with disabilities your entire life.
Yes, I have, and it started more after high school, the advocacy, to be able to figure out where I belonged in society and stuff. So
After high school?
Yeah.
And what was it that specifically started you after high school?
I think when I was figuring out who I was and stuff, that the advocacy came with that, in the sense that I didn't know how to function in society, so I had to learn all of that school didn't teach me and stuff because of the learning disability and stuff. So yeah, so I had to try to navigate these systems that just weren't working for me.
So the school system doesn't really teach you social skills?
No.
Even though you're thrown together with other kids, and the assumption is that you'll learn from other children how to be more social and what social graces are.
Yeah, exactly.
But you need to figure that out on your own.
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
And part of that was through the advocacy. So like I wasn't on AISH for the first, I think, 3 years of after high school, and then it's like as I started getting diagnoses and stuff and figuring things out, then I applied for AISH and started figuring out where the advocacy was in Lethbridge and how that would help me and stuff grow.
So it was through your own difficulties with your learning disability and your own difficulties with navigating the social aspect of life with others that you felt you needed help. And then how did you get the diagnoses?
So my family doctor, actually coming back from Calgary, was able to help diagnose me and stuff. But it took good friends to make sure that I didn't kill myself and stuff, that I had that support network back in the community and from Raymond. And so that's when I got my diagnosis and got the supports from AISH and stuff in place, and started seeing a counselor, because for the longest time I didn't like medication, and I had to overcome that stigma that I saw towards medication and getting help for the mental health piece.
So you said quite a few important things there. One is that you were suicidal, and friends helped you not to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So what was causing you to want to end your life?
Well, it wasn't so much ending my life. I think it was the cutting, and it was because I couldn't feel emotions and stuff, and it was that depression and anxiety of not knowing what to do in society and how to be a part of society.
So you just had severe anxiety.
Yeah.
And when you weren't feeling, then you resorted to cutting.
Yes.
Because then at least you felt something.
Yes, exactly.
And that's pretty extreme.
Yes.
Did you know at the time that was pretty extreme and
Yes.
unusual?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's where the friends I was staying with really helped me and stuff. So, yeah.
Thank goodness for good friends. Thank
Exactly.
goodness. Now, these friends helped you to get the diagnosis, and
Yeah.
they helped you to go to the right doctor. Is that how it worked?
Well, it was back in Raymond, so it was people that I've known my whole life and have
Yes.
known me. And so I felt comfortable with them to help with that transition. And to this day, I would say without them, I probably wouldn't be here because that transition wasn't easy. And having a family doctor that understood all of the past as well, like my mom, because my mom was told that 50% chance one of your kids will have depression or something. And the family doctor that worked with my mom is the one that diagnosed me. And so I was very lucky to be able to get him when I came back here as a doctor.
So, Chris, you were telling me about how this doctor, it had been the family doctor, your mom's doctor, helped you to get diagnosed with your learning disability, and also helped you to be able to qualify for AISH. So, could you tell me what AISH stands for? What is AISH?
So AISH stands for the Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped, and it's the government program for people that struggle to work because of disabilities.
So this is a provincial program.
Yeah, it's provincial.
And how does that work?
So when you get a diagnosis, you apply for it, and they decide whether you qualify or not. And so the first time around, I actually did have to go through an appeal process, and my doctor wrote another letter, and they changed their minds without me going through the appeal process.
Oh.
And so it was really nice, where other people have not been so lucky, because sometimes the doctors don't understand what AISH really is, and that it needs to be a lifelong struggle, not just a one-time thing. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
So that's part of severe disabilities, is that this is a lifelong struggle.
Yeah.
And the Alberta government says it's more difficult to diagnose people who have mental disabilities or learning disabilities or mental health issues than it is people with physical disabilities. But both continue on lifelong.
Exactly. And that's where you run into issues with governments trying to kick us off of AISH or limit our access to the benefits that we already qualify for. So I think we'll touch on that a bit later, though.
Well, the Alberta government has made some serious changes to AISH.
Yeah.
They say they want to make it easier for recipients of AISH to work. Can you explain what do you think that means?
So I think it means something opposite of what they're actually saying. It means that they want you to work, and they're almost on the verge of forcing people to work that they think can work. But at the same time, it's like situational. Sometimes people can work. Like with me, I can work a little bit. And part of that is the mental health piece. If you're doing well, it works. If you're not doing well, it doesn't work. And so my fear is if they see me working a little bit, that they're going to say, well, you can work, so you don't need to be on AISH. And so it's a scary thing for me because they don't understand mental health. The government has never fully understood mental health or how it works or doesn't work. And so with this ADAP program, they're saying that anyone that can work has to work. And I don't feel comfortable with that. So.
Do you know what ADAP stands for?
No, I don't.
ADAP, is it Alberta Disability Adaptation Program? I'm not sure either.
Yeah, something like that.
So under the ADAP program, it sounds like every person who is currently on AISH will be reassessed.
Yeah.
Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding.
And that means every single person who's on AISH.
Yep.
Now, I think you went to see our MLA, Nathan Dudorf, about this issue. What did he say about physical disabilities, people on AISH because of physical disabilities?
It's easy to assess them and that you can physically see it, but when you can't see the disability or understand the disability, it's hard for government to accept.
Yes, and there are many disabilities that are invisible. deafness is one,
Yeah,
which is severe and lifelong.
yeah,
So, and mental illness certainly, and depression, and these, and then there are some immunosuppressant disabilities that are not able to be seen. So
Yeah.
the invisible disabilities are the harder ones for the government to understand.
yeah, exactly.
So now we talked about the recipients of AISH being put back to work. The government says that they want to give more opportunities for people on AISH to work.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. So how much can you work now if you're on AISH?
I think it's around $800 and then every 50 cents on the dollar up to a certain amount.
Okay, so up to $800 you could earn a month beyond your AISH, and then for every $2 that you earn, $1 is clawed back.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after a certain amount, all your earnings are taken back by the government.
Yeah.
I think that's around $1,200.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Okay. Now the federal government, so there is already a provision for people to work a little bit,
Yeah.
if they are able.
Yeah. There is.
Okay. Now the federal government has recently announced the Canadian disability benefit of $200 a month to all Canadians with disabilities. Isn't that great news?
Yes, it is. But our government is deducting it off the AISH. So
Our government means.
yeah, the Alberta government is deducting it off of AISH
And
benefit
why are they doing that?
because they claim that we make the most money out of all the other provinces, but we still live in poverty. And so it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't matter how much more we make than other provinces, we still live in poverty. And so it's like they want people with disabilities to continuously live in poverty and not have a chance to be better, have better stuff, and yeah.
So the federal government wants to give $200 to every single Canadian who qualifies
Yeah.
with a severe disability. But the Alberta government is saying already on AISH,
Yeah.
people are receiving better benefits than in most of the other provinces.
Yeah.
And so they want to claw that back. Okay, and you've explained that this isn't fair.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that the part of the problem is since COVID, we have had such an inflation that the cost of living, especially rent and food, is much higher and quite a bit higher in Alberta.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you received a letter from the provincial government that tells you how you are to go about returning the $200 to them.
Yeah, well, just to be clear, this letter is stating that you have to apply for it. So people that don't get it already have to apply for the disability tax credit, which is the way the federal government gives the $200 out. And so I've applied before for this and went over it with my doctor, and I felt it didn't apply to me because it was a lot of questions like aids to daily living, which is like, do you need help using the washroom? Do you need help with these kinds of things? And it's like my disability, I don't need those kinds of help, so I didn't feel comfortable filling it out and applying for it. And so right now I'm in the middle of doing a research project how accessible these programs are or aren't. And so right now I don't feel it's very accessible because there's no benefit to me to apply. And so this letter is saying that I need to apply for it.
And they're saying that first you have to apply for this additional program. What is the additional program?
The disability tax credit.
Okay, and do you have that?
No, I do not have that right now. And so this letter is saying you need to apply for it. And so what the government's ultimately saying is that we want to make money off of you by taking the federal dollars that should be going directly to people with intellectual disabilities and take it away from you. And part of that is that they want to take that money and put it into their own coffers. And so really it's taken advantage of the most vulnerable people in our community and saying that we don't care if you live in poverty, we're still going to take that money away from you that should go to you. And so part of the promise that Trudeau made was that he wouldn't let this happen. And so there's some question about whether they're going to do something about it or not. And so as an election has just happened, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out further.
So ultimately, this is a dance between the federal government and the provincial government.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
The way you understand it, and the way you've explained it to me,
Yeah.
is that the federal government has offered $200 a month to all Canadians who are on this special program that's called
The disability tax credit.
disability tax credit.
Yeah.
But then in Alberta, if you receive that $200, that will be clawed back from the amount that AISH gives you every month.
Yes, exactly.
And you're saying that then that would give, that then the provincial government, Alberta government, would be able to use that money from the federal government, put that into their coffers, and pay and pay you less.
Exactly.
Okay, so this seems to be a problem that perhaps the federal government needs to understand.
Yeah, and some of the advocacy I do with People First of Canada is that we said from the very beginning it shouldn't be attached to the disability tax credit.
Okay.
And so
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what People First Canada is and your role
Yeah.
with that?
So People First of Canada is a people-led, with intellectual disabilities-led advocacy group, which has chapters across Canada. And we do advocacy around closing institutions and making sure that people aren't put back into mini institutions and stuff. And some of the big things we do is work with the federal government on making sure these programs work well. And so we've been involved with this from the very get-go when they were talking about helping lift people out of poverty and stuff. And so even with the amount that we're getting, it's not enough to lift us out of poverty, but it's a start. But it's only a start for some if the provinces can claw it back. And so that advocacy piece is very important, that we keep talking about this and have it be known by the public that your tax dollars are being misused by government and stuff. So really it is a misuse because the Alberta government thinks they can claw it back and not have any repercussions of taxpayers saying, no, this is wrong. And so really we need to go to our MLAs and members of parliament, or the federal MPs as well, and tell them that this is wrong, what's happening and stuff. And so they can make sure that that doesn't happen. And provincially, our MLAs need to hear about it as well and make sure that they know what's going on as well.
And as you mentioned, with the new government in place now and the new prime minister, it's important that that government knows what's going on and that you have advocacy for you.
Yeah.
So what is your role in People First?
I'm the second vice president. So
Of Canada?
People First of Canada, and past president of People First of Alberta as well.
Well, congratulations. That sounds like a big job.
Yes.
That's fabulous. So you were going to look at the letter and see what it says to you.
Yeah, so I
So
think
it tells you have to apply for this
Yeah.
program.
because it says, as we approach tax season, we are pleased to provide you with information to assist you with accessing all sources of income for which you are eligible. Filing taxes on time ensures you are eligible to qualify for various benefits. As a client of the assured income for the severely handicapped program, you are required to access all sources of income for which you are eligible, including federal programs such as the Disability Tax Credit and the new Canadian Disability Benefit. And then it goes into, am I eligible for federal disability programs? So they're talking about eligibility.
Okay, so were you aware that under AISH you are obliged to apply for all income that you could be eligible for?
No.
No one's told you that?
No.
But now they're telling you, you look like you might qualify for this, so you are obliged to apply for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which seems very manipulative to apply for something that doesn't get me ahead. Okay. Like, if I do qualify, what's the point of doing it? And so if they're gonna say I have to apply when it doesn't get me anything, then I have a serious problem with that and would challenge them in court, because there's no benefit to me to be applying for it, because it's just gonna get deducted. So it's like when I work, I know how much I can work hourly and stuff, and so I never work over that, so I stay under the threshold.
Right.
And so when I do public speaking, honorariums don't count towards that either. So if somebody gives me an honorarium, I don't have to report that as earnings, because it's not an earning, it's not a job in the sense. Right. And so with them saying I have to, I don't think they legally can say that.
Can force you.
Can force me to do that.
Okay.
So that's just my own take on it, because it's something that when you look at human rights, you can't force anyone to apply for a government program.
Okay. Now, we talked about housing and food inflation are quite high, and AISH is only indexed at 2%. It was thanks to the NDP government and the NDP concerns that it actually was replaced at 2%. It had been higher before under the NDP provincial government. But 2% is far behind housing and food inflation. What are you finding in terms of being able to find a place to rent?
So I've been very lucky that I live with a friend that has only charged me $600 for the room and stuff, and I help with groceries and utilities and stuff. So I've been very lucky that I have a good network of friends that I can pull on to find those awesome opportunities and stuff. So yeah, but I've heard of other people that haven't been so lucky. And I think our homeless population is going to go skyrocketing because of the inflation. And when you have governments that don't care about the most vulnerable, I could easily be in the shelter and stuff. And over COVID, I almost was, because my landlord was threatening to kick me out and stuff, and wasn't getting the correct supports from the PDD program, which is a whole different story and stuff, and just trying to fight for those things during COVID was really, really hard.
So it's kind of like the individual against the bureaucracy is what I'm hearing from you.
Yes.
That as an individual, it's very, very difficult, and your advocacy for people first, for people with mental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, that must be even more difficult for people who don't understand the system and need advocates. Now, there was another piece to this that we wanted to talk about, and that was the defunding of nonprofits that advocate for people with disabilities.
So, so the big three major advocacy groups, which were getting some funding from the government, have been defunded, and part of that plan to defund them was so that they wouldn't have pushback on these programs that they're trying to implement around the disability stuff. And so it shows the disrespect for people with intellectual disabilities, and that they don't feel that we can make a change for the better by not voting them next time.
So which government, when you talk
about
the
government? UCP government
this
in
was
Alberta.
The Alberta government?
Yeah, Alberta.
So when did that happen?
A month ago now.
March?
Yeah.
In March. So it was quite recent, and as I recall, wasn't it around the same time they announced the ADAP program instead of AISH.
Yeah.
So did you make a correlation between those two programs? The one coming in and the other leaving?
Yes, very much so. And that's why I question the ADAP program, is like, if it's mandatory to do that and not just something if somebody wants to work that they can go to and it's mandatory, then I have problems with it. If it's not mandatory and it's just for people that want to work, then I'm okay with it. But to force somebody to work when they're not doctors and handpicking doctors that'll agree with them, it doesn't sit well with me. And that's the feeling I got from when talking with Nathan about this. That
Nathan
it was
Newdorf.
Newdorf, yeah.
The
MLA for Lethbridge East, I believe.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And so it's really disheartening when you have people that want to work, but to feel that you're forced to work, it just doesn't feel right.
Okay, so we should remind our listeners that ADAP is the program that is to replace AISH,
Yeah.
and that is where all the people who are currently on AISH would get reassessed, reevaluated. But even that is a question of who would be doing the reevaluation, because everyone who's on AISH, as I recall, you told me about your doctor getting you into a situation where you could get evaluated,
Yeah.
that the people who are qualified do the evaluation of whether you are able to work or not. And so the question is, who would be doing the evaluation of whether you can work, and then who is making that decision how much you can work?
Exactly. And with mental health, if you catch me on a good day, people would say, well, this guy can work. But if you catch me on a bad day, they would say, no, he can't work. And so that's why with mental health specifically, it's a scary thing to go down that road of one assessment covers the whole person. Because it's like with mental health, I can share when I was in high school, my mom took me to a mental health practitioner, and she said it was all in my mom's mind because she only caught me on a good day and didn't see those bad days. And so she said it was all in my mom's mind. And so this demonstrates how even people that are in the profession can make mistakes.
Yes.
And not fully understand the situation that I'm in. And so I've gotten better over the time of advocating for me to talk about that aspect of it and say, this isn't right because you're catching me on a good day. Where if I was a bad day, I wouldn't have come today to do the interview.
Yeah, can you describe a bad day?
Where I just stay in bed. I don't get out. And in high school, there was a week where I would do that, just stay in bed, not want to talk to anybody. And so part of that is that depression, anxiety towards things going on, and being overwhelmed and just needing to recover. And so when I do big speaking things or big trips, there's a recovery time for me that takes longer than other people.
Afterwards?
Yeah, afterwards. Yeah.
So it's as if your brain has to reset and it needs that time to reboot.
Exactly.
And recover. And you said that you have noticed in your own life that for you it takes longer than for other people to recover.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Chris, it's been wonderful chatting with you today, and thank you so much for sharing so much intimate detail of your own personal life. And I can see why you are such a good advocate, because you have such a range of experience and information that you are willing to share.
Yeah.
And so thank you for your advocacy for the people with disabilities, whether they are physical or mental, hidden or visible.
Yeah.
And we thank you for being on our program
Well,
today.
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.